My mom kissed my baby's forehead, then looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're not the right person to raise him." I thought I misheard. I genuinely believed maybe she was sleep-deprived or trying to make a dark joke. I forced out a laugh. But she didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just sat there, perfectly still, like this was something she'd rehearsed. I looked over at my dad, thinking surely he'd say something, maybe tell her to cut it out. But he kept his eyes on his coffee, stirring it like he'd been doing it for years, like he couldn't bear to meet my gaze. That's when it hit me this wasn't spontaneous. They came here with a plan. They waited for the baby to be born, waited for me to be weak and sleep-deprived and full of doubt. And then they struck. I held my baby a little tighter. My chest felt tight, not with anger, not yet, but with confusion. "What are you saying?" I asked quietly. My mom took a breath, leaned in closer, and said, "We think it would be best if Sarah raised him instead." And just like that, the room tilted. The air changed. Everything I knew about my parents, about my family, about how safe I was, it all cracked. "Sarah?" I asked, as if I didn't know who that was. But of course I did. My sister. The perfect one. Married. 2 kids. White fence. PTA mom. She was always the benchmark, the example. And me? I was the one who got pregnant unexpectedly. No partner. Just me. A single mom in a 1-bedroom apartment, still recovering from a C-section, surviving on takeout and 4 hours of sleep. "She has more stability," my mom added, almost like she was reading from a brochure. "And more support. You're doing great, honey, really. But it's a lot. You don't have to do this alone." I couldn't even respond. There wasn't room in my throat for words. Only heat. Only the sting of betrayal. It wasn't that they doubted me. It was that they'd already decided for me. They'd talked to Sarah. Probably over lunch. Probably months ago. They saw my pregnancy not as a miracle, but as a mistake they needed to fix. I stood up. Not dramatically. I just couldn't stay seated anymore. "You need to leave," I said, holding my son so close I could smell the powder in his hair. "Please." My mom blinked. "We're not trying to upset you." "Then why are you here trying to give my baby away?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. It surprised even me. My dad finally stood up, but he still wouldn't look at me. As they walked toward the door, my mom said softly, "You'll see. One day, you'll understand we were trying to help." And the door closed behind them, just like that. I sat on the floor, baby in my arms, heart shattered into pieces I didn't know how to hold. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stared at the door, half expecting it to open again. But it didn't. That night, I barely slept. Every feeding, every diaper change, every sound he made, I held it like proof. Proof that I was enough. That I was here. That I was his mother, not just biologically, but soul deep. And yet, that question kept whispering at the edge of my mind. No matter how many times I shoved it away. What if they're right? What if I'm already failing? The next morning, I got a message from Sarah. "Hey, Mom told me what happened. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, not yet, but because I was afraid of what she might say. Afraid she might have already set up the nursery. Bought a car seat. Imagined this whole other life that included my child. My son cooed in his bassinet, totally unaware that people were already deciding his future without him. I wanted to protect him, but suddenly I wasn't sure if I could. Because if my own parents didn't believe in me, what did that say about me? 2 days later, Sarah showed up at my door. She didn't text. She didn't call. She just appeared like she used to when we were kids, but this time, there wasn't a smile or a bag of chips in her hand. Just that serious, diplomatic look she wears when she's about to solve a problem. I didn't want to open the door. I really didn't. But part of me needed to hear it. Needed to know if this was really her idea too, or if my parents had roped her in. I cracked the door open. "Hey," she said softly. "Can I come in?" I didn't say yes. I just stepped back, holding my baby against my shoulder like a shield. She walked in slowly, glancing around the room like she was already imagining what she'd change. I hated that thought. "I'm not here to fight," she said. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding going on. Did you ask for him?" I said it straight. No sugar, no small talk. Just the truth. She looked at me, startled. Number God. No. Mom brought it up a few weeks ago. I told her she was being ridiculous. I watched her carefully. Her voice didn't shake. But her eyes, there was something unreadable in them. But, she continued, when I heard what happened, I thought, maybe it wouldn't hurt to talk. That's all. Talk about what? I asked. About what happens if you do hit a wall. If it gets to be too much. If you need a break. I've raised two. I know it's hard. You want to be the backup plan? I want to be your sister, she said. I want you to know that if you ever need me, I'm here. And if Mom made that sound like I'm plotting something behind your back, I'm sorry. I looked at her. And for a second, just a second, I believed her. Because that was the Sarah I used to know. The one who braided my hair and covered for me when I snuck out. But something still felt off. Like there was a second layer beneath her words she didn't want me to see. Did they offer you money? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes widened. What? To take him. Did they offer to help you with a bigger house or tuition or something? She blinked, then stepped back like I'd slapped her. You think I'd take your baby for money? I don't know what to think anymore, I whispered. All I know is they came into my home and told me I wasn't enough. And now you're here, saying you're just trying to help, but it all feels coordinated. It's not, she said, but her voice was different now, less soft, a little colder. Look, I get it. You're overwhelmed. You're emotional. But don't twist this into something it's not. I didn't come here to steal your baby. I came here because I care. Then leave, I said. Because right now, caring looks a lot like pressure. She stood frozen for a moment, then turned to go. But before she opened the door, she said one last thing, and it cut deeper than anything else. You know Mom had postpartum with me, right? That she couldn't hold me for weeks? That she tried to leave once? Dad covered for her, but it was bad. Maybe that's why she's worried. Maybe she sees something in you she remembers in herself. She left before I could answer. And suddenly the silence in the room got loud. My mom. Postpartum depression. I never knew. She never told me. But if what Sarah said was true, maybe this wasn't just about control. Maybe it was fear. And maybe, just maybe, some of that fear was valid. Because I was struggling. I was tired all the time. Sometimes I'd put the bottle in the wrong bag or forget if I'd changed him. Sometimes I stared out the window for minutes and didn't even know what I was thinking. Was I slipping? Was I too proud to ask for help? That night, I held my baby close and cried for the first time since he was born. Not because I wanted to give him up, but because I finally realized how fragile I was. How close I'd been to breaking without even knowing it. And now I had to ask myself the hardest question yet. Not whether I could raise him, but whether I could raise him well, without becoming someone I didn't recognize. A few days passed. No more texts. No more surprise visits. Just me and my son, floating in the thick quiet of newborn life diapers, bottles, those tiny midnight cries. But the silence didn't bring peace. It brought echoes. Echoes of what Sarah said. Echoes of that look in my mom's eyes when she told me I wasn't the right person. I kept wondering, were they really trying to take him, or trying to save me from something they didn't think I could see? That afternoon I found myself sitting on the edge of the bed, baby asleep beside me, and I did something I swore I wouldn't. I called my mom. She picked up immediately, like she'd been waiting. I didn't say hi. I just said, "Tell me the truth, all of it." There was a pause. Then she said, "You're stronger than I was. I know that. But I also know how fast things can slip when you don't ask for help, and I wasn't going to sit back and watch that happen again." I asked her, quietly, "Why didn't you ever tell me about what happened with Sarah?" Another pause. Then, "Because I thought it would make you scared to be a mom." I didn't know what to say to that. So she continued, "You were 6 when it happened. I was gone for 2 days. Your dad told everyone I had the flu. The truth is, I left. I didn't know if I was coming back. And when I did, I was never the same. I loved you girls, I did. But something in me was gone. And now when I look at you, I see that same blank stare I used to have in the mirror. I don't want you to live through what I did. Or worse, pretend it's not happening." I was quiet for a long time. Then I said the only thing I could. You don't trust me. No, she replied softly. I don't trust what pain does to people, even people I love. And that's when I realized this wasn't about me being weak. It was about her being scared, terrified even, of reliving her own past through me. And in a way, I got it. But it didn't make it hurt less. I hung up before either of us could say anything else. The next week, I went to a therapist. I told her everything. About the pregnancy, the birth, the visit, the words, the fear. And for the first time, I said something out loud that I hadn't dared admit even to myself. Sometimes I look at him and I love him so much it hurts. But then there are moments where I wonder if he'd be better off without me. She didn't flinch. She didn't tell me I was awful. She just nodded and said, "That's not a sign you're a bad mom. That's a sign you care enough to ask the hard questions." That changed something in me, not overnight. But it was the first time I didn't feel like I was failing just for feeling fragile. A month later, I invited my mom over. She came in quietly. No flowers this time, just her, and 2 shaking hands. She held her grandson. He smiled at her. And for the first time she cried. "I was wrong," she whispered. "You're not me. You're better." And in that moment, I didn't feel like a daughter trying to prove herself anymore. I felt like a mother, standing in her own truth. Strong, shaky, but standing. I still struggle. I still question myself more than I should. But every time I feel like slipping, I remember that day. The day my mom told me she didn't trust me, and how that truth led me back to trusting myself. People think the scariest part of motherhood is the sleepless nights, or the crying fits, or the diapers. It's not. The scariest part is the silence when everyone's gone home, and the baby's asleep, and all that's left is the sound of your own doubts. But sometimes, silence is where healing starts. And now, every time I hold him and he grabs my finger like it's the only thing keeping him grounded, I remember what I whispered that first night after they left. "No one is taking you from me." Only now, it means something different. Not anger, not rebellion, just truth. He's mine, I'm his, and we're figuring it out together. Because even when they didn't believe in me, I learned how to believe in myself. And maybe that's what being a mother really means. Not doing it perfectly, just not walking away. No matter how loud the doubts get,